So, can you hear me, Chris?
Nope.
Okay. Maybe not.
More headphone output, more.
Hold on. Talk again.
Can you hear me?
I can. Hold on. Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, weird. I think it's only coming out on the left side.
Yeah.
Hello. All right.
Yeah, I only have
fucking loud.
Yeah, everything's coming out on the left for me.
I only have it on the left
I don't
side.
know if
That's the best I can do.
No,
Okay, that's why
I don't
wasn't
really
sure
care.
if that
I
was
just didn't know if that was supposed to be happening.
It's coming out in stereo, so it's hold up. No, it's not. Oh, now we're in stereo.
Hello.
Yeah.
Are we getting both headphones now? I feel like we're still not.
Nope.
What the fuck?
It is what it is.
I guess. I mean, it completely doesn't matter. But, like, I did the thing that should have given us stereo, and
Doesn't
we're not
matter, but
getting
it.
it.
Kinda matters.
It doesn't matter, but I want to know why it didn't work, you know?
That's totally fair.
Do drink water.
Is this better?
Something.
Yeah, I can hear myself.
Yeah,
Very-
all right.
I can
Cool.
hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah,
There
I
we go.
definitely messed this up.
All right. This is... How many minutes in are we now?
10, 11.
That's quality content
Yeah.
right there.
This is what
That's
people.
11 minutes of high quality content.
That's what people.
Yeah.
Oh, that's yours.
Is it? Oh, fuck. I'm almost there.
It's like the world's most unprepared, unprofessional podcast.
Dude,
in
he's
the world.
Dude, I got here at the same time.
This is why. You
Dude, this
should-
is the first time it's been neck and neck with the guest.
Right?
Well, to be fair, he did bring one of them. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, I guess that couldn't really be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was here like half an hour ago. I was just waiting for them. I wouldn't have been able to help with any of this anyway. So.
Peter.
I guess this is why making the drummer the audio guy is a bad call.
Do you want me to restart this or no?
No, just keep it rolling and then just write down that those first 11 minutes were pure gold.
Yeah,
That
Cut that out and release it as its own one.
yeah.
There you
yeah,
go.
it's the Patreon
Yeah.
episode.
This is the premium content.
If you're
It's just-
hardcore, you
Yeah.
listen to the sound check.
listen to us dunk on Erik for 11 minutes.
How you doing, Mike AM? It's a good day for a podcast. He said, yeah, let's do it. I said, fuck yeah, okay, let's do it. And that's how it happened, and it's happening now.
And we are live.
Yeah.
We're not live, but we're gonna edit out all the bullshit
Yeah,
and
That's unfortunate.
and present you with
yeah.
3 to 4 minutes of high quality content. This is welcome back, listeners. We're here today with the Reptile Ward, Chris and Nick.
What's up?
They breed reptiles and tell us about what you do.
So we specialize in ball pythons. Nick also breeds certain species of geckos, and then I also breed a different species of snake called the Western hognose. Yeah, that's basically it. I know it doesn't sound like much, but there's a lot involved in all of them, and we have a pretty decent sized operation going at this point. So.
We have roughly how many animals? I know you have a better handle of this than I do. We always forget animals.
Well over 100 on the ball python side, and then you have however many geckos you have.
I have 2 breeder female crested geckos. I have a breeder male chihuahua, and then I have some grow ups as well. I have another male chihuahua that's growing up of a Leachianus female. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with her yet, but I've got some ideas. And
So
then
what's the grand total?
so the new hatchlings, I think I have 8 now. Yeah, I have 8 geckos.
Nice.
And then I think that's how many Ognos? I should talk to the mic. That's,
Yeah. Don't
Yeah,
talk.
I don't need to
Don't
look at
talk
you.
to me.
I look at you enough.
How many-
7,000. reptiles.
Yeah.
Right? I'm good at counting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That's exactly how many.
every time we get a new follower on Instagram, we've got to buy a new one.
Yeah, there we go.
That gets problematic.
No, and then probably about 30 or so hognose right now. We're just sort of getting our toes wet with that. But the ball pythons keep us quite busy. So, yeah.
Shit, how many eggs does a gecko or snake lay? And how many?
Two very different questions.
Yeah, well,
Go for it,
you
Nick.
got
Geckos.
time to answer both of them. I know we just jumped right into the shit, but I'm not going anywhere.
That's fine. No, I'm good with it.
So for the ball pythons, it's anywhere. It's kind of a range, so it kind of varies depending on the age and the size of the female. So you can get anywhere from like 2 to 3 to like if it's a really big girl, like 10 to 12,
Up to like 15 in some very outlying cases.
Yeah, because it's kind of interesting because there's a specific region in Africa where ball pythons come from called the Volta region, and for some reason the ball pythons that come from there are massive. Like they grow like usually a female ball python will max out at like 4 to 5 feet.
Yeah.
And these ones will grow up to 6.5, maybe 7 feet, and they look more like a boa constrictor.
Substantially bigger.
Yeah. So and they're kind of like I don't want to say rare in the hobby, but
There's not many.
yeah. So that's a cool like outlier. So they can obviously produce a lot of eggs, but with the geckos, it's usually like 1 to 2 egg per clutch, but they lay on a like almost a monthly cycle. The interesting thing that I was having happen with my two breeders is they were both producing twins in sync for the first like 3 or 4 months that I had them, but I didn't get them from the same source. Like I got one from a rescue and the other I got from a breeder. So it's really weird that they kind of synced up like that. So yeah, usually with those, it's about like 2 eggs every month. And then with the Leachianus, it's a little bit longer. My female's not quite to breeding size, so I'm not really sure what to expect from her, but it's what their lay cycle is.
You'd be once every like 2 to 3 months if you're lucky, and then they take up to 150 days to hatch.
Yeah, and that's the other side with the eggs too. Is like once you get them, you're looking at anywhere with ball pythons. It's 90 days.
60.
And then with geckos, so with what I do with the geckos with the cresteds, it's about 60 days, and the Chihuahua, so the male that I'm crossing them with, it's closer to 90 days. So it's kind of in the middle. So I'm never really sure what to expect. So
what Nick didn't explain there is Nick is actually creating hybrid geckos between 2 very, very similar species, similar to like I guess one of the most familiar ones people would know is like a liger, stuff like that. But these are 2 species that occur naturally in the same space in New Caledonia. So the hybridization does happen naturally. It's not like we're taking 2 animals out of 2 different localities and being like, breed.
Where's New Caledonia?
it's sort of in between. I sometimes mess this up. He'll correct me if I'm wrong, but it's sort of in between Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, I was way off.
It's actually a really tiny stretch of islands. So the interesting thing, we were talking about this
and
yesterday,
very
actually.
remote.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it gets destroyed every year by tsunamis and like naturally occurring weather events. So for a while, it was 10, 12 years ago?
It's probably more. I think I was being a little generous there, but it's probably like 15 to 20 at this point.
A lot of researchers, especially like herpetologists, thought that crested geckos were going to go extinct because there's just not enough landmass for them. They're getting destroyed so frequently that
And they're getting preyed on by all the bigger geckos on the islands, which there's so
Because
many.
The strangest thing is this tiny stretch of island is where some of the largest species of gecko in the world come from. So like the Leachianus, which is another species from the New Caledonia Islands, will grow up to like 3 feet long. So
No,
like,
not quite 3 feet, but they get substantially big.
yeah,
Like there's probably one really big boy out
Yeah.
there who's 3 feet.
Oh, yeah,
but
like
you won't
there's-
find that all the time.
There's pictures of Leachianus geckos on people's like forearms, and it'll stretch the entire mass of the forearm.
Yeah.
And they're big. They're girthy. They're not
Yeah.
like skinny like you'd see like a leopard gecko in a.
Like almost like an
that's
iguana,
right.
pretty much, huh?
Kinda.
Like getting there, like
think of like a puppy, like a puppy or a kitten, but scaled. It's like
Yeah.
about that size. It's
Yeah, they can get pretty big.
so
Anyway, kind of went off topic.
yeah, but so because this island is so tiny and there's these large species of geckos, people were like herpetologists were pretty sure that they would interbreed. And sure enough, through again research in the captive hobby, people figured it out. But as well as that, crested geckos went from being on the endangered species list to being perfectly fine now because of being kept in captivity.
They were taken out of the wild, brought into captivity, and actually proliferated. They did substantially better than they were doing in the wild while they were living on these tiny islands and essentially nearing extinction. And now they're one of the most common pets in the entire pet hobby, not even just reptiles. So it's done a complete 180. It's pretty crazy.
What I'm really interested in is, like I said, so scientists were pretty sure because they lived in such close proximity that they would have to breed, because the way the crested geckos breed and the way Chihuahua geckos breed are very similar. So they're living so close together. It's probably going to happen. So sure enough, it is viable. And the interesting thing that I find is you're not really sure. So I have two hatchlings that have made it to like actually hatching out and are viable, and they look almost completely different. Like one of them has a really long tail, which is more a Chihuahua gecko feature, and almost no pattern except for on the tail. It has a crested gecko pattern. The other hatchling, its body shape is much more like a crested gecko pattern, but it has Chihuahua patterning everywhere. So it's even there's even variability within that same two animals procreating.
So are they like mules where after that they can't procreate, or can you make like purebred?
It fully depends.
Yeah. It's
Especially
kind of unclear right now because
for reptiles it's very hit and miss. There are some hybrids out there because there's different python species that you can interbreed and stuff like that. We're not doing any of that, not because I don't like it. It's just we're focusing more on other stuff. But there are some that are 100% unable to reproduce. There's just no chance. And then there's stuff like the New Caledonia geckos where they're so close in their genetic makeup that they could be sterile, but there's also a chance that they're able to reproduce it. It fully depends. Like Nick was talking about how they're like his two hatchlings he has now are drastically different. You could have two babies in a clutch and one could potentially breed and another might not. Yeah. So it all depends. And it's one of those things too, whereas if we ever released any as pets to people, we would have to make sure people are aware of what they are and all that kind of stuff. But we're more so right now just doing it for our own kind of amusement because they're really, really cool. Yeah. They look awesome. So
as much as I love ball pythons, when you ball python stuff, like Chihuahua geckos are my absolute favorite reptile. So working with them is really cool. And kind of like as we were talking about earlier, because crested geckos were on the endangered species list, a lot of people who are doing captive breeding kind of look down on hybridization because we want to try to protect the species and make sure it survives. But we're kind of past that point now. And if this is going to happen in the wild, why not try to see where it goes in captivity? So because of that, my initial point, people really hadn't tried to breed back the hybrids to each other because it's more like, oh, hey, I made this cool thing. Like, I'm going to sell it to you and not really talk too much about it. So I'm kind of, I don't want to say, like, I'm interested in seeing where this is going. So that's kind of why I'm playing around with it. And also, I think it could be cool because the interesting thing, too, about the two species of geckos is a crested gecko, if it loses its tail, it won't grow back. Chihuahua gecko, because it's one of the few species of gecko. Is it the only species that has a prehensile tail? Like, fully prehensile tail? Or is it?
Can you define prehensile for me?
So it's almost like a fifth.
Could you use it in a sentence?
They're not.
Oh, okay, so it
it's almost like
can control it.
Yeah,
it's like a monkey's tail. Almost.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Because cats, I look at my cat and she doesn't know what the fuck her tail is doing. She she catches it. Yeah. So she's like, I got it.
Yeah. This thing that's attached to me. That ow, yeah. Where these, they almost use it as a third limb. So when I handle, especially my big breeder male, he will brace himself. Like he'll almost wrap his tail around my wrist. And they'll do the same thing on trees and stuff like that. So because it's such an important part of their physiology. Thank you. They
you can keep talking though. I shouldn't do that on the.
They regrow their tails. So I'm kind of curious to see if it's possible to create a crested gecko, like an animal that looks visually like a crested gecko that will grow its tail, and actually get it to that point. See what is kind of possible.
I don't know if we're going to get to the point where we actually want to test.
No. Try
to have their tails fall off. That's very inhumane. But it would be a cool feature because what they do is in the wild, if they're threatened or if they're in a position where they're really scared, they actually just drop their tails.
They detach it.
and
By will.
it'll stay behind and it'll twitch. So it'll distract whatever's trying to prey upon them, and they'll take off.
So one thing's running away and one thing's just sitting
you got
there,
it.
obviously
So
alive.
to be able to make a gecko that looks like a crested gecko that could regrow their tail, because it does happen in captivity too.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they just get spooked.
Sometimes when hatchlings are going through their first shed, they'll have the shed will almost like tug too much on the tail, and they'll just drop it because they're so skittish because they're babies. So it's almost like Chris is saying, it's not like I would do an experiment like, oh, I'm gonna make you drop your tail, but like in situations like that,
I hope not.
If,
Seems like something you would do. I've known you for a while.
I guess that's true.
It's not true.
No, it's
No, it's not true at all.
I would
Why did you
beat
say it
Nick
was
up.
true, Nick?
I don't know. It's yes ending. This is what we always do.
Yeah.
This is. I won't go into it on the podcast, but there's some dark
man.
history about our producer here as well. But yeah, like to see if so that animal, not that they're really hindered by it, but like again, like to push past those weird genetic barriers that exist in one species but doesn't exist in the other, even though they're so closely related.
yeah.
You should slow down, Nick. You're like running through your sentences, like you're trying to get to a finish line. We got time here,
The
buddy.
man is passionate about
Yeah.
geckos. Okay,
Yeah,
That's fair. That's fair. That whole thing.
Chris,
started
does
off
that
by-
worry you that he's so much more into geckos than pythons?
No, that's fine.
Where's your head at, man?
yeah.
That's fine. He can do whatever.
Chris
he
is
wants.
insecure about Nick's gecko knowledge. I just realized this.
See, like,
I still probably
Nick
have
had
more.
Nick had a cold brew before he came here,
Yeah.
so he said he's just on
I
like
smashed-
cloud nine
I
in
smashed
terms
a
of
really
talking about
big
gecko
cold-
shit.
I had like 5 hours sleep and I'm hungover.
Been there.
So
and a little bit of herbal enhancement, I guess we can call it. So it's a little bit of like stream of consciousness, but yeah.
the funny thing is, a lot of what Nick knows about these geckos,
Yeah.
he learned from me. He's just
I'm just regurgitating.
he's going through it. I'm just sitting here like, yep,
Yeah.
okay,
Just
yep.
fact checking me.
Yeah.
Pretty much. But yeah, that's kind of how this whole thing started. Is Chris had this wealth of information about reptiles in general, especially ball pythons, and I was kind of at a point in time where I had some money to do something with, and this seemed interesting because you're working with animals. It's not only a hobby, but it's almost like an investment as well. Plus, it was something I could do with a friend, and how quickly it's kind of grown from us. Because we started in 2017.
No, it was the end of 2018, so it's
Wow.
Or
very, very quickly exploded. Our first clutch
Yeah.
was December 2018.
that's right. It was right
So-
when we got back from your wedding in Mexico.
Yep. We had the eggs the eggs
Yeah.
were in the incubator while I was getting married in Mexico. So, yeah. I'm sure Nick just stole a question away from you
Probably. Sorry.
by just starting on that.
How did you guys get started?
There we
breeding
go.
reptiles?
We can
There
just
we go.
re-edit this. I'm sure Erik can figure
No,
it out.
no.
It won't sound like shit.
Nick's just very excited. That's
Chop
fine.
that to before that.
But no,
We're existing on different timelines,
Yeah.
so
Well,
we're
see,
catching up with the questions
Chris-
as you answer them.
Chris has been doing a weekly podcast with the guy that was kind of mentoring us. So he's like, this is like the fourth or fifth one he's done. This is the first one for me. So I'm,
hey, that's all
I'm
right. man.
chomping at the bit a bit more than he is.
That's all right. No, I told you, I'm just tired.
You want to give a shout out to that podcast?
To Billy at Mutation Creation. Yeah. So he's doing weekly podcasts Mondays at 7 that I'm a part of. It's called My Channel, My Content. And yeah, it's been fun if you're into ball python talk and stuff, but it's definitely not a podcast that would interest you if this is not something that interests you. So
It's very like inside baseball for
Yeah.
breeding stuff. So
Cool.
yeah, it's pretty neat. He's
How'd you get linked up with him?
oh, okay. So that's a funny story because that story will lead into how we got started. So I can just do the whole chain.
Nailed it, dude.
it's almost like you're good at this.
He's got a.
It's like you've done this.
I got nothing. I was gonna try and drag Erik. I have nothing. So basically, I've always liked reptiles and all that kind of stuff. And once I became old enough to purchase things on my own and make my own money, I went to a pet store that used to be in. I can't remember the name of the mall that was on Upper James. Where the Walmart Plaza is.
Oh.
The-
I don't.
the
Did
pet
it
store
have
was-
a name? It was just.
The pet store was called Urban Zoo. I remember that.
Yeah.
And they had a little tank, and at the time I had no idea how terribly set up this poor animal was. But they had this little tank with this little brown anole, which is just like a super common lizard in like tropical locations. And
it just looks like a brown lizard.
like just picture a brown lizard, and you're thinking of what I'm describing. And it came with like that like green, like almost astroturf looking like carpeting instead of any kind of like proper substrate, and like one little like half a coconut for a hide, and that was it. And I bought it because it was $40, and at the time I didn't realize I was being taken like crazy because those lizards are actually commonly sold as like feeders for bigger lizards for like $2. Yeah. So it was yeah. But anyway, I got that, and once I had that, I started doing a bunch of research on them, which I would never ever suggest anybody else does. Don't buy a live animal before you've done your research on them. It's
How old were you at the time?
Oh, I was like 17, so I very quickly rectified this situation. It's just a lot of people do jump into stuff like that and then not realize kind of what they're getting into and the things they're supposed to buy, and it could just get messy. I just highly suggest before anybody buys anything, they do as much research as they can. But anyway, that just led to me getting more and more interested. I eventually bought a male ball python from a pet store. I had it for a while, and then a buddy of mine was breeding at the time. He actually lived like a couple blocks over from here, and he had a pretty big collection. And at the time, I thought it was huge. I thought it was the coolest thing. So I would give him a hand and all that kind of stuff. And on the side, he made buttons. For whatever reason, I guess it was one of his hobbies, and he offered it to certain people as a service. He sold buttons. Erik got some.
Still life buttons, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that was from him. Cool.
Yeah. So he sold buttons sort of on the side. He was working and doing the ball python thing. And Billy reached out to my buddy. His name is Ethan. And was just like, hey, man, can I buy 1,000 buttons? I just want to give them away at a reptile expos and stuff like that. So one day we just drove out to, he at the time was in Orangeville, drove out to his place in Orangeville and did like a tour of his facility and all that kind of stuff. And then that was it for like a long time. So basically after that, I kind of got a little bit bigger into the ball python breeding, had some, let's just call it non-successes, had some clutches of eggs that didn't go well. The babies either didn't hatch or they didn't thrive once they had hatched, which at the time I didn't realize is somewhat of a common thing, you know, just like in anything, breeding dogs, cats, you know, sometimes they just don't make it.
Right.
But at the time I was so disheartened, I was just like, okay, I can't do this. So I let my buddy who was doing it basically take on the snakes that I had sort of accumulated at the time, and he kept doing his own thing. And then 6 or 7 years later, me and my wife, the marriage that we spoke of a couple minutes ago.
The marriage that done happened.
Yeah.
There's only been one. There's only
that
been
one.
one.
Yeah, there is no other marriage that anybody knows of.
Dun, dun, dun.
Basically, when I got rid of all the snakes, I kept the two that I considered pets because I had them the longest and all that kind of stuff, and I just had been keeping them as pets and, you know, just doing whatever you do to take care of them. She was a little bit interested in the breeding side of it because I told her that I used to do it and all that kind of stuff. So we were like, okay, you know what? We'll go to one of these reptile expos. We'll spend a couple $100, get like a cool looking male, because the genetics behind ball python breeding is why it's such a niche, but like, I don't want to say lucrative, but there is a lot of money in the hobby, and it's because of the visual representation of the genes and how you can mix them and how you can change them up and make completely different looking snakes that are the exact same species, but like if you put two side by side and ask somebody, nobody would ever guess that they were. So I went to this reptile expo. I think the wife got called into work because we were supposed to go together, and I walk up to a table and it just happened to be Billy, this guy that I had only met one time like 6 or 7 years ago. And I was thinking like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, I remember this guy, and he was like, oh, hey man, like instantly recognized me, even though this guy meets hundreds of people a year. Like, just instantly, like, how you been? Like, oh my god, it's been so long. And I was like, holy crap, this is pretty cool. Like, and I ended up buying an animal from him. Not that day. We actually went to his facility a couple days later and bought I want to say like a $500 animal. And it was pretty. It's bright yellow, like just really cool. And not long after that, he posted something up on Facebook just saying, hey guys, looking for some help maybe once or twice a month. And I was like, oh, hey, like I'd volunteer my time. I think the snakes are really cool. Like, I don't even want to get paid. Like, I'll just come in. And he was like, oh yeah, man, well, if you want to come by this Saturday, whatever. So I went by that Saturday, and then every Saturday since, we've been at Billy's. And then he was expanding and expanding. We got to the point where we needed more help. And there was one weekend when his other staff, I can't remember if they had just quit or if they just weren't able to make it.
I think it was quick because I never saw them.
Oh, well, there we go. And I was stuck because I knew that I would be the one that had to do everything, right?
Yeah.
So I just reached out to Nick, and I was like, hey, Nick, if you're not doing anything, like, do you want to come give me a hand? I'll buy you a bottle of something or a case of beer, whatever, just so I'm not stuck there for like 14 hours today.
What did you end up getting him?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Oh, nice.
It ended up it turned into this. So
Yeah,
he ended up
yeah.
getting me into
So he got so into it, like, while we were driving home, he was like, I think I want a snake. And I was like, oh, damn, really? So, that's what it turned into. I negotiated the price for Io for you.
Yes. So I ended up going and helping out, and I think it was like halfway through. We were there for a long time that first.
Yeah,
time,
it was like an 11-hour day.
Yeah, and I think it was 3 or 4 hours. And I'm like, I think I'm enjoying this. Like, these are really cool animals. Just the spectrum that I'd seen of the different patterns and colors was just incredible. So I'm like, I think this is cool. I grown up with pets, but in my current living situation, I'm not exactly allowed like dogs, which is what I was used to. So I'm like, you know what, this is something I can have. It's self-contained, and you know what, it's going to be something that's going to be with me for a while. It's not something like a fish, or this is something else that doesn't really have the same sort of quality of life that a ball python or a different reptile can have in captivity. So yeah, it was just like, I guess I'm not gonna, because he was getting paid in credits. I'm like, well, why don't I just not get that bottle of booze and just get him to like you said, negotiate maybe a snake for me. But I'm pretty impatient, and
Yep.
I think it was a week after I found a listing on Kijiji, because he was kind of telling me what I should be looking for at that point in time, and it was a 3-gene female. It was a butter Enchi Woma, who apparently,
Those words all mean nothing to the people listening.
yeah,
Word.
so something you'll find out about ball pythons, if you get into it, is it's very similar to weed, in that people just come up with terrible names for things.
Yeah.
And other people who are into it are so into it.
Yeah.
It's the exact same way.
The strawberry cheesecake, that's it.
Yeah, and like you get spin-offs of
You
that.
had that too?
Yeah. There's some pretty bad ones out there. Like a gene that we've recently invested pretty heavily in is called GHI, and it stands for gotta have it. Like, it's that.
Yeah, it's literally just whoever
Yeah.
happens upon it first gets to name it, and you're just like, ugh, come on.
So
It is what it is.
Just do better.
So-
just do so much better
Yeah.
at naming things.
yeah, like take more than 3 seconds
Yeah.
to come up with it. Maybe give yourself a weekend.
But basically, yeah, so Nick and I Nick and I kind of came to an agreement where I was like, well, if you want, like, I'll just take your hours working today, because at that point, I had been working there for a while, and I wasn't volunteering. I was actually getting credit towards buying animals from Billy, which was fine by me, because at that point I had already decided that we were going to expand a little more, buy a couple more animals. And this is before me and Nick were actually like doing this as a thing. It was just me kind of wanting to do it and show the wife and all that fun stuff. And he goes, well, why don't you just take the hours I work today, put it towards your credit, and then why don't you help me find a snake, or like put some of the hours that I did today towards an animal or something like that. And I was like, okay, well, I'll tell you what, then I'll help you find a snake that, you enjoy. You don't have to just go to a pet store and pick up something at random, like whatever the pet store has at the time. And about a week later, he found something on Kijiji. I negotiated it for him, and he saved a bunch of money on it, and he still has her to this day.
And honestly, I think because I got so lucky with the temperament of this first snake, it's part of the reason why I fell in love with the species so much, because I think she's shown me aggression once, and it was a couple days after I first got her, which is kind of normal. But beyond that, like she's a puppy dog with scales. Like
it's not really aggression either. It's defensiveness.
Yeah. So I don't think I could have gotten luckier, because she was super easy to handle, gave me no problems eating and anything like that. Like a lot of things that you'll run into when you first start keeping a reptile. So definitely got lucky there. But yeah, it kind of spiraled, and I think it was about a month into me going and helping out.
It was 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
It was 3 weeks later. Our boss put up this, he had this big like enclosure system. It's like this really, really good, like space-saving system. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to put it up on Facebook. And me and Nick looked at each other, and Nick goes, should we get that? And I was like, wait, what do you mean? He's like, well, do you think it would? And we were like, oh, crap. I guess we've been talking about doing this together without realizing that we were talking about like doing something
business
together. Yeah.
Well, so he had mentioned that I bought the female, and we could like she had some interesting genes in her. So once
I
was
like, we could breed her for you, and get some cool animals out of it, and then you could keep a couple, and it would be really cool. And then we kind of like at that moment we're like, oh, I guess we're doing this.
You're like at the door before you even realize it.
Yeah. So Nick was like, well, it's a great price. Like we might as well just go for it. And I was like, all right, Billy, don't put it up online. Well, I guess we're buying it. And he was like, what? Are you serious? I was like, I guess so. Like, it's time to fill it. So
that was one of the many purchases that were made in that same fashion at Billy's facility.
Yeah, so it's kind of just snowballed from there. Yeah. We started really small, had a very, very simple first clutch that we spoke of earlier, that we had late 2018. And since then, I mean, we've probably had 30? No, not quite 30, but maybe like 25 clutches.
Yeah, we're creeping up.
Oh no, it's probably closer to 20. I think I'm overestimating it. But the quality of the animals we've been producing has skyrocketed, and for some reason, I have no idea why still, we've gotten quite popular on Instagram. Yeah. We have quite the following out of nowhere. And I'm very happy for it, but it's just sort of enticing us to buy even more and better stuff, because we love posting it, and people appreciate it, and they're also just cool to have and cool to be able to see and look at and take out, and like you got to take care of them like you take care of anything. You got to make sure you clean up after them and make sure they got water and feed them, and it's kind of just exploded over the past, I guess it'd be a year and a half.
Yeah.
It's just wild.
It just keeps snowballing. It's crazy. Like we keep getting to points where like, okay, we need to slow down for a little bit. Like we need to stop acquiring animals and like just kind of focus. And then usually within 2 or 3 days, somebody will reach out to us and be like, hey, do you want this? Like crazy offer.
Yeah. So there's been at least 4 different times where like, I think we need to.
I mean, you guys were literally on the phone like, talking about that when you got in here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
You're not wrong.
It never really stops.
Yeah. So, it's crazy because neither one of us walked into this as any kind of business, and I don't think either of us really see it as a business. My wife just mentioned something to me when I was driving here, and I think she's already talked to Nick.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier.
But basically, like, it in all senses of the word, it is a business, but it's more of a hobby. And we do make a couple dollars from it here and there, but it's still something that we do because we enjoy it. It's just
that's like music for us, but except you actually make money doing it.
But I mean, you want to.
It started out very similar, right? Where like the first year, that first clutch we made, I think we made a total of what, maybe $300-400.
If we made $300, I'd be amazed. But
which kind of, if you take into account like paying for the like taking care of the both like the male and the female leading up to that, paying for the like the care of the hatchlings before we sold them, we maybe broke even.
No, we didn't even break even. No, like it's not a money making business. No. That's the thing. I feel like when people hear
it fuels your habit.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like when people hear people talking about making money from breeding animals, they get kind of like standoffish, like whoa, money? Really? They're like, this is.
It's a living creature.
Yeah. So I feel like people kind of get off put by that. But at the same time, like nobody ever takes into account all the money that goes into getting to that point.
It's more like trading, really, right? Yeah. Like at the end of the day, like you're investing into your side of it, and then you're kind of trading things back and forth.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, just
But-
trying to not sink.
Yeah.
But that
It's
first,
just like this economy that you exist in,
Yeah.
and you enjoy being in that space. So
well, the one thing Nick didn't mention too about that first clutch is the cost of the actual animals themselves.
Yeah.
Like the mother and the father. So there's a lot of costs involved to get to that point. Now we're just now getting to a point where, because a lot before what we were doing is we were breeding and really hoping we'd get one specific thing, and then all the rest wouldn't really be all that appealing to people in the hobby. So you generally sell them to somebody that owns like a reptile store or something, and they could just sell them as pets. So there's not a ton of money in it, but now we've got to the point where we're making animals that we could be selling for pretty good money, but instead, because of where we're at, we're keeping them, because even though we could make a couple $100s off the animal by keeping it, growing it up, and then also breeding that animal, it could not only make us a little bit more money, but it could make us even better animals to then keep back and
I'm getting
going.
like an underpants gnomes vibe with this. Like
Yeah.
you're just going to be overrun with snakes, and
Oh,
you
absolutely, yeah.
forget to sell them.
We go through these phases where like we'll invest in more like our housing system, like the rack. It's a racking system made by this company called ARS. So we'll invest in those and be like, okay, we're going to be fine for like 6 months, and then 3 months later we're like,
well, we just bought one that houses 40 hatchlings. And we were like, okay, this is going to set us up all year. We're fine, right? And we bought it, 2 months ago?
Yeah.
And now I literally just texted him this week, and I was like, we need to buy another one. We are out of space.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty crazy. But it's a good problem to have. Like, I'm not complaining about it at all.
Before we get too far away from the point that Chris was making about how like those first clutches, and with a lot of people like
Oh, yeah.
people that are going out there and they're buying 2 snakes from a pet store and they're trying to breed them together, you're creating a lot of animals that are not going to be either desirable to people that are looking for a pet or desirable to other people that are breeding. And something that me and him set out to do when we decided to do this is never really produce animals that are not going to be desirable. Like, we really don't want to flood the market or even just the world with like reptiles that are just going to like sit in pet stores, and like Chris said about his initial brown animal,
Or-
they're not going to be cared for properly.
Yeah, or go to pet homes because they were bought and sold for $25, where Buddy gets it for his sister, whose sister gives it to her boyfriend, and that animal just never has a proper home, and it's never secure.
Just becomes like a rope they're trying to get rid of.
Yeah, and it happens a lot, and you know what? It doesn't just happen to reptiles, but it like most exotic pets. There's
They can be impulse purchases, unfortunately.
oh yeah. So
that's the other side.
we want to make animals that are desirable, but that also when people buy them, they're buying them for a reason. Like they're buying them because they want them. They want to see this particular color or pattern, and they want to watch that animal grow and see how that changes and all that kind of stuff. When you're buying a $25 snake for your kid or for your buddy or whatever you're buying it for, like most people are like, oh, cool, thanks. Like, that's really awesome. In the first 2 months, they may be super excited about it, but then month 3, your kid's forgotten he has it. You know what I mean?
And
2 months sounds generous.
Yeah. Well, for
something 2
a
weeks.
kid, yeah.
And the other thing too is it's almost like a filtering process too, because the people that are reaching out to you about a $1,500 to $2,500 animal are they've done their research. They know how to house these animals properly. So it's like, again, it's almost like a filtering process. We know that they're going to be living good lives, because the ball pythons live an average of 30 years, 25 to 30 years.
It's like 25 to 30.
So
That sounds about right.
they're gonna be around for a long time. So especially me being like a vegetarian, like a real animal sort of person, want to make sure they're gonna be living good lives. Like if we're producing these animals, I want to make sure they're not like living shitty lives, being neglected and dying early from mistreatment.
Yeah. Do they eat like live? You mentioned like the animal that you got.
They don't eat those, but they eat mice and rats.
Mice.
So Nick, being the super kind-hearted,
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah,
Do you feel bad?
yeah, there you go.
Personally, the way I look at it is they can't eat anything else. Like, they're predatory animals. Their system is only designed to digest and get nourishment from other animals, from meat. Being a human, being able to sustain myself and have an enjoyable, good meal that doesn't contain any meat and nothing really needs to die for it, I feel good in that sense, because I don't need to eat the meat. Whereas
Preachy.
Yeah, that's the only.
Life feeds on life, right? So it's
Yeah.
like
That's
you're-
exactly what a leech, like a parasite, like you would say. So, but yeah, like to not sound so preachy, I can survive without having things to die. They can't. Like things having to die, they can't. So it's the circle of life. If it existed in the wild, it'd be doing the exact same thing.
So how we go about that? There are people that very, very humanely breed and raise rats and mice for that exact purpose, and then they're put down completely painlessly. So basically, they're put down and then frozen. Just like we do with our steaks and our
Hungry
pork
man
chops.
dinner.
Exactly, yeah. And then that way, especially a guy like Nick doesn't have to go through the let's say turmoil of actually having to feed a live animal to one of the snakes, because that although some people do it, and I mean it is still natural, that's how they eat in the wild, it can be pretty traumatic. So
It's a life and death struggle. And the other thing too is it can open up the snake to trauma as well, like physical trauma as well, because the rat is
they'll
dying.
fight back.
Yeah, it's gonna. They still have teeth, they still have claws, and they will fight back.
Yeah.
And you hear horror stories of some people like they put a rat in, they think the snake's gonna take it, they don't check in time, and the snake's dead because the rat ate half of it.
Chewed
A
it.
lot. Yeah, chewed. Yeah.
well, I mean, I don't know how many people would have seen it, but there's a thing going around on Facebook like a couple of years ago where it was like a Reddit post that somebody turned into a meme, but they were like, "Oh, look, my snake and my snake and its dinner became best friends. They're cuddling." And it's like, no, they're both incredibly stressed out, and the snake isn't eating it because it just wants the thing to go away.
Yeah.
And what never got included in that meme is that snake ended up dying because the rat got hungry, and just all that was there to eat was the snake.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. So there's a lot that goes into the care of these animals, and you have to be very on top of every single part of it, because I mean it's just like having a dog or a cat. Like you got to make sure they stay healthy and make sure there's nothing that can hurt them. You don't want your dog or cat walking around in their own piss and shit. So
Yeah. And like a cat can survive by eating a bird, eating like a fish or something like that, right? But you're not going to, like, if you can avoid feeding your cat by literally feeding it a live like bird or a squirrel or something like that, you're going to do it, right? So it's the same thing with feeding frozen thawed. And a really interesting thing that I've run into, and it's sort of been my sort of like, I don't know, like my secret for the business. Like Chris is really good at negotiating. I'm really good at seemingly getting picky eaters to eat. And all of our animals, like we bought one recently from a guy, and he'd had it for what, 2 years or a year?
I don't know, like a year, maybe more.
And it hadn't eaten at all. And he tried everything. And what people tend to do when you have a problem eater ball python is you feed it live. Like you initially start with a live rat, and then you move on to something called an African soft fur rat, which is, again, it's something that they would find naturally in Africa. It's a rat that occurs in Africa, even though inherently they eat rat, like reptilians. They eat frogs primarily. So you start with that, and then worst comes to worst, you can scent a rat with tuna to make it smell similar to a frog. Sometimes leave it there. Never had any success with any of this. What I started doing, and what I was thinking about, is maybe like the survival rate for ball pythons in captivity versus the wild is drastically different, right? So maybe these problem eaters are snakes that wouldn't thrive in the wild. Maybe there's some sort of neurological issue, or some sort of like they're just too skittish to go for live prey. So what I started doing is heating up a frozen thawed rat as hot as I could. Like, again, another thing too is I think
not scalding,
No,
not
no, no.
hurting the animals.
every time I say something like that, keep in mind that I'm doing it in a humane way. But the other thing I started thinking about is sometimes people make a mistake when you're caring for an animal to sort of almost humanize their needs. Like try to think of what they want in a very human manner. Like, oh, they're going to want to entertain themselves. They're going to want to have like areas to explore. But in a lot of like ball pythons, especially, and reptiles especially, they don't want that. They want.
You're getting off topic of how you're feeding.
I'm enjoying it.
Oh, I'm getting around to it.
All right.
So they like to be left alone. So to get back, now you completely blew like my train of thought. So something I decided to do as well is they're nocturnal animals. I would feed them late at night. Like I'm in a position where like I'm a lot of my income comes from like personal investments and from the snake business. So I'm not working at the moment, so I can wake up at 5 o'clock and like I can be up at 3 to 5 o'clock in the morning and feed ball pythons and stuff like that. So thinking about it in a very much like what would they do in the wild? So they would eat late at night, and then so what is the barrier they're running into? Well, maybe they're getting too much stimulus from the live rat. So like I started saying, take a frozen thawed rat, heat it up as hot as I can. feed it late at night. So again, between 3:30, 5:30 in the morning. Then put it on top of the snake so that it has to move around, because the snake's not going to be happy with this on top of it. It's going to take a look at what's there, and it's going to try to get it off of it. So it's going to explore it. It's going to realize it's food. So put it on top of the snake and then leave it alone for as long as I can. And I think out of those 6 or 7 problem eaters, like haven't eaten in a year type of snakes that we've purchased, I've gotten almost
all but one
to eat within 2 or 3 days of me getting it and using this method.
And what he isn't mentioning is that ball pythons are notoriously picky eaters, and for an adult ball python to go off food for a year, I know it sounds absolutely insane to humans because we eat multiple times per day, but it's actually not uncommon, and some of them can go that long without even losing any weight.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Which is, it's absolutely wild. Their bodies work completely differently, but just because they can doesn't mean they should.
No.
You want them to eat like once a month or something?
It's once a week to 10 days for an adult,
Yeah.
and then baby is 5 to 7 days, like just to get some size on them. But I just did what I did to you. I apologize.
That's okay.
But it's not uncommon, but that doesn't mean it's right. Like I believe that all these animals should be eating. There's not like some reason that they've just decided to starve themselves.
This is actually one of the biggest like points of debate in the ball python hobby, is like people talking about it. It's called the wall, and it affects females most prevalently, and it's usually around the 1,000 gram range. So for some reason they get to 1,000 grams, they're eating fine, and then they'll just stop. Like they'll show no interest in food. And there's really no sort of like science behind it.
Sexual maturity.
Well, yeah, sexual maturity. But some people think like there's. I think the last time we were talking about this on a live kind of stream, somebody's like, "Well, I think some of them just want to take more time to like reach sexual maturity and like feel like they're ready." And it's like the snake's not thinking like that. Like 2 snakes in the wild aren't going to slither up to each other and be like, "You know what? I'm not ready for this. Let's try again next year." Or like, "You know what? You're a little too small. Let's try again next year." You know what I mean? So
This
like,
is against my morals.
yeah, like snakes aren't going to think about that, because the other big thing too is people are like, you shouldn't breed a female before the 2nd year. But if they're to size, if they're sexually mature, if they're displaying all the signs of being sexually mature, if that snake is in the wild, it's not going to be like, "Oh, you know what? Like I'm too young. Like we have to wait till next year."
Also, just before we get off that topic, we'd mentioned earlier that the geckos lay once a month. The ball pythons can only lay 1 clutch a year, and that's not even guaranteed.
Yeah.
So their body can only like physically go through the process of building the material that turns into the eggs and stuff. They can only do that once a year. So when you hear Nick talking about like breeding them younger and all that kind of stuff, it's not like it's not like we're trying to force animals that shouldn't be breeding to breed. Like if their body is ready and they're building these, they're called follicles, and they're basically like pre-eggs. They grow and turn into eggs once they're fertilized.
You kind of like see or feel that in the snake.
You sure can. That's a whole other process that I've gotten very, very good at. But
You're like what, 1 for 25?
yeah, something like that.
Like one, like 25 correct, like 1. Sorry, yeah, 25 and 1 as well.
Yeah, the clutch that we just cut too weird.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is, if that snake isn't ready to breed, it just won't.
Yeah.
It physically can't. So there are some very greedy people in this hobby, just like any other hobby, any other business, anything else, that'll try to breed animals when they're definitely too young. And I'm talking like before they reach sexual maturity.
Right.
But as long as you know, if you watch the animals and you know the signs of the animals and like kind of what they do while their body is getting ready for all that kind of stuff. The big thing is a lot of people put weird human-made boundaries on when you should be able to breed. Oh, it should be 2 years old. Oh, it should be this weight. Oh, it should be that. But the problem is some of the, like Nick was talking earlier about how those Volta region animals can get substantially bigger. Well, just like humans, these animals could grow to be bigger or smaller. Some of them might be full grown at 18 months, where others can grow until they're 3.5, 4 years old. Some of them can max out at 1,400 grams as a female, which is totally sexually mature and 100% like okay to breed. Whereas another female might get up to 35, 4,000 grams, like 3 times bigger. and it might not be ready to breed until it's at 2,000 grams. So it's not about trying to breed them early to like get something extra out of them. It's basically letting them let us know when they're ready, and if they're ready, it's not necessarily detrimental in any way to the animal, because after that they have an entire year to eat and rest and recover before their body goes through it again. It's not like they're being bred and then 3 months later they're being bred again, and then all that kind of stuff, and forcing them to constantly go through the process.
So what do they like do?
Yep,
that it was that. So
you got it. You got it. No, people can't see what you just did, but he linked his fingers together.
I linked my fingers.
And that's basically what snake sex looks like.
Their tails will wrap around, and
the male will wrap his tail underneath female's tail, and they just do what they do. It's very similar to humans, and we don't need to go into that much further.
Well, I don't know. Something I find interesting is there's kind of a range.
Fucking.
Yeah, snake fucking.
Do they have like corkscrew duck dicks?
No, it's not quite as weird, and it doesn't have the same sort of explosive.
They do have two dicks.
They have two dicks. It's like a Y-shaped dick.
What?
Yeah.
So it doesn't explode out in the same way that a duck's dick does. But
That's
how do you
what
know
people
this,
are
Nick?
here for.
man, I don't have a day job, and
I was
smoke
just
a
going to say,
lot
don't
of
worry.
weed,
Okay,
man.
no, I appreciate this segment now because on this point of existence, I appreciate this segment because Nick does nothing wrong, and now I know that he does like weird shit with the fucking snakes and stuff.
I don't
Nobody's
do
watching.
weird shit.
No,
rubbing up against the fucking containers and stuff like that, and weird ass shit. What do you think?
I don't think it's very weird. I
Right,
think
so they got
you're
two
projecting
dicks.
some of your some of your Branford perversions.
I'm projecting.
Yeah.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not talk about this. You're right.
we can go into some of the stuff that's come up on Discord, but I feel like that's like stuff for another episode,
That's stuff for never.
You guys think you're going to be back on this? I run this shit.
I don't know how.
Yeah, it doesn't even have my name on it
No.
at all. Like,
Is there anything else that you want to know? Because I feel like we'll just ramble incoherently about any topic around what we do. So
Yeah, so the two dicks go.
Back to the Y-shaped dicks. So
It's like forked like their tongue.
yeah.
Okay, so it's one
it literally
dick that-
comes out like a Y.
Yeah.
Oh.
So yeah, very much like the tongue, and then obviously the opposite side is very similar. So
It's
yeah,
very similar to.
like there's two ports.
There's two. Oh, so do they got to get them both in?
Yeah,
Well,
and,
they don't have to.
but
and is it like directional, like a USB port?
I don't know. It's hard to tell.
I've never looked that deeply into it. To
they
be
can't
honest
really
with you, I
communicate.
don't really
It's not
wanna-
like I'm in the room and they say, "Hey, like you got to flip over. You're upside down."
Right,
or
they
something
probably
that.
like their privacy.
Yeah.
a little
Well,
bit.
honestly, some of them we have one male that will like lock females for like what was it? The yellow belly male was like what
3 days.
3 days.
Just nonstop
shit.
sex. Yeah.
Yeah. And then some of them like we have one male that
Just
for
the most shy motherfucker.
we had him for what was it? Almost a year, almost 2 years, and we bought him as a breeder male.
He was ready to go. He was full grown, like should have been able to breed right away, no issues.
And wouldn't do anything, wouldn't lock anything. So at first we're like, okay, like so male ball pythons sometimes if they get too fat, like too big, they'll just get fat and lazy. So we're like, okay, he was really big. So I'm like, maybe he needs to go on a diet. Like maybe he's just too big. So we tried doing that. That didn't work. Tried a bunch of other stuff. So like putting another male in an enclosure with a female to try to get them to spar and kind of sperm on that way wouldn't work. Almost anything that you can think of, like putting them in a bag, taking them on a car ride, putting them with a female.
That
didn't
doesn't
work.
that doesn't sound like anything anybody's ever thought of that doesn't know ball pythons, Nick. Just so you
I
know,
know.
you sound like a crazy person.
We're already so far in. At this point, I might as well just lean into it.
That's
all
what
right,
we're
all
here for.
It's stuff like that. And then we got to the point in time where me and Chris were like, you know what? Maybe he's just not meant to breed. Maybe we should just sell him off as like a pet. He's still a really cool animal. He's got a gene in him called Motley, which when we purchased the animal,
He's very expensive too, by the
Yeah.
way. This is why this is so frustrating.
Side note to that, we bought him in a charity auction, so the money did go to a good place in the end, even though it did kind of suck for a little bit. But when we purchased the animal, we didn't know that there was an issue with Motley males breeding, and it was kind of a weird thing. People really didn't know why. So we had him for almost 2 years, and we were like, you know what? Maybe we should just rehome him as a pet. And me and Chris, it was almost like he heard. Like, me and him were talking, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to toss him in one more time.
I'm going to give him one more chance.
One more time. And in the wild, they tend to breed in the rainy season in Africa, and this happened to be a really shitty rainy day. And
You're playing Toto for him.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Man. We have a buddy who says that with your problem eaters, you should tell them you should talk to them and tell them you love them. But I don't go that far.
Does it work for him?
Lying.
No.
Nick's tried.
Yeah, it doesn't work, man. They don't respond to me the same way.
They don't speak
Austin.
English?
No, it's surprising. I'm trying to learn the specific dialect of that's spoke in the region that they're from in
Parcel
Africa.
tongue.
Yeah.
So anyway,
yeah,
long story short, we have our first clutch from that boy
Yeah.
in the incubator right now, 5 eggs.
So
And that'll be very, very
and
cool.
just sort of trying to recreate what seems to work with him is trying to recreate the natural conditions as close as possible. So putting him in with a female when it's going to be a low pressure system, wetting down the bin. So it's almost like there's rainwater running in, and it seems to be working. So
barely, but it's working.
It barely. He's very picky.
Yeah.
He'll only lock certain females. There's a gene called Enchi, and he doesn't seem to be interested in Enchi females at all.
Interesting.
So kind of like Erik and his preferences for women.
Oh, I thought you said women.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to out him publicly. That's up to him.
Yeah, not yet.
Yeah.
I'll wait till I'm 35.
That's a good call.
I'll have explosive sexuality changeover.
Perfect.
Have you seen those? I forget what. There's an Instagram channel of this speech therapist or someone who's working in that field, and they trained their dog to use, or dogs to use buttons.
Yep.
You've seen that?
I have not.
Do you know what the channel's called?
No, but there's one with a cat too. A lady's trained her cat for this.
The cat's so fussy.
Yeah, yeah.
It'll just be like, "Why are you pouting?" It's just like mad,
Yeah.
mad, mad.
Yeah.
Are you mad because I jiggled your belly? Mad.
Yeah, the cat. It's very entertaining. The dog is so much more friendly and happy.
Yeah.
The cat just hates everything.
That's so funny.
Stella, the dog's name is Stella. That's the first one. And then this lady makes the buttons and gives people instructions how to how to get them to know what the buttons mean. And some of the dogs have 30 to 40 buttons now. And you think they lack the arms for it, but you think a snake could figure that shit out?
Certain species maybe, but ball pythons in particular, they're one of the dumbest species on the planet. It sounds horrible to say, but
They're pretty dumb.
it almost gives them this puppy dog kind of personality. But yeah, there's stories in the wild of they'll find a breeder female drowned in her burrow because she didn't realize she needed to crawl out before the rainwater got to a certain level, and she got trapped and died. Stuff like that, right? So I don't think
They're not clever.
Yeah, I don't think they're able to figure out the button. They would probably just sleep on it or try to coil around it. Dumb in a beautiful way.
How about the geckos?
Probably not.
I would definitely say no.
Yeah,
So there's more going on upstairs with the ball pythons than the geckos?
it's probably about the same.
Yeah.
They're about the same.
Yeah, they're none of them are particularly clever. But weirdly enough, when you get into larger pythons, and I'm talking, those bigger ones that everybody's seen at a reptile show at one of their buddies' birthday parties that are
Burmese
20,
or
22 feet.
reticulated python.
When you get into those bigger animals, you actually, and there's no proof behind it because it's incredibly hard to prove in a very minimalist brain. Reptile brains are almost all instinct.
Yeah.
But you can almost see their understanding of certain things, the way that they react to the world. Just it's different. They seem to have a little bit more of an understanding of everything that's going on and stuff like that. And it's just very bizarre because their brain isn't any bigger in relation to their body size. It's the same brain size in relation, but there seems to be more intelligence once you get into the larger python species versus a snake that only gets 3, 4, or 5 feet. no idea why, but we don't have any
No.
of those kinds of species, obviously. But the people that I know that do keep them, and I know a couple, say the exact same thing. Like you can see them kind of trying to understand what's going on around them and stuff like that, instead of just being there and kind of in the moment, like,
Right.
The one species we have a little bit of experience with that I noticed that with was we had a pair of green cat snakes. What was it?
Yep.
Yeah, green cat snakes.
Yep.
Who unfortunately they didn't make it. Like we were sold them under the impression that they were captive bred, which after we picked them up and did a little bit more research didn't really make sense for the price that they were offered to us. But it seems like they were found, so eggs that were found in the wild and then brought into captivity and hatched that way, which can lead to, because if mom maybe has a parasite or some sort of issue, that can be transferred to the babies. So unfortunately both of ours didn't make it. They both passed in very similar, very strange ways, and
very close together after being alive for a year. It was very weird. They were in different locations and everything.
But before that, it was after working with the ball pythons and the geckos, like having this tiny, it was like a shoelace pretty much with a dime for a head, that would come in. It would recognize when I was in the room. It would come to the front of the enclosure because it knew that's where food came from. So like, it wasn't like a dog or a cat, but there was a little bit more going on. Like it recognized me. It recognized my scent that like, oh, this thing isn't like danger. This is where food comes from. So it was kind of cool, but unfortunate end.
Yeah, that sucked.
Yeah.
Here, we got some questions.
Nice.
I tried to, you guys, people are interested. I sometimes try to get people to participate on the social medias, and this is the most we've gotten of that in the history of the show.
Well,
yeah.
The idea of breeding reptiles, the people that aren't immediately already interested in it, is always sort of outlandish. The first question is usually, why?
Yeah, why?
Why would you do that?
Usually the top three for me is why, is there any money in that, and how do they fuck? Like, how does it happen?
It's the same thing with music, actually.
Yeah. Why is there any money in that, and like how do you get laid?
Yeah, why would anyone do that?
Yeah.
Been working on it for years.
All right, first one's from Leo, and I think I can field this one if you don't mind me taking a
Go for it.
crack at it. He says they're kind of slimy, which I think they only are if you cover them with slime.
That's
Correct.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
Like when they initially crawl out of the egg because they're covered in amniotic fluid.
Yeah, I mean,
Like humans.
that'd be like saying humans are slimy because they come out all gross. Yeah.
But yeah, no, they're very dry to the touch.
Yeah.
Very
Even
smooth.
aquatic reptile species generally aren't slimy. They actually generally have a very it looks shiny, but it's not.
Yeah.
There's no slime. There's no slime.
They don't even sweat or anything, right?
Nope.
So they're less slimy than people.
Then we are. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're being offensive to snakes if you call them slimy.
Yeah.
It's 2020, guys. We have to be more accepting.
Don't be a snake bigot. Douchebags.
Do they like to be pet?
Some.
Yeah.
Some do.
Just like people, I guess.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, they all have tiny, like, unique little personalities. Like, we have some that are absolute nightmares. Like, we'll try to bite you if you even look at them run the wrong way.
Very defensive.
And then we have others, like the first snake, Io, my pet, kind of. She loves being handled. Like, she's an absolute puppy dog. Like, me and Chris had like a homemade adult rack set up at my place, and I didn't close her bin properly one day, and next morning came in, she wasn't in her enclosure. I'm like, oh shit, she got out. Sure enough, found her, put her back in, and then later that day I had to feed. And usually if this happens with like any sort of reptile, they're stressed out, they're not going to go, like, they're not going to eat. She ate no problem, like, absolutely had no ill effects. Just
she didn't care at all.
No. So it's kind of like Chris said. It's kind of like people. Some of them like being handled. Some of them like being touched, and others they don't want anything to do with you.
And for the most part, I mean, especially if you get one as a pet, if it is a bit defensive, and it's always defensive. These animals are never aggressive. They're always thinking that you're going to hurt them.
Yeah.
So when people are like, "Oh, snakes are going to bite me," they all they want to do is that's not true. They think you're going to eat them. So if you thought somebody was going to eat you, I imagine you'd probably react quite poorly, in general. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely.
Right, it's like someone the size of a building is lifting
Essentially,
you up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And God, what's going on?
Yeah, like they're not gonna like most people, like the heat signature, like the size of you, like they're like, oh, like I'm gonna eat that. Like no, like Chris said, it's a tree that's moving around that's trying to eat them in their mind. So
Yeah. So yeah, it's animal to animal, but
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say any of them necessarily enjoy being pet, but a lot of them, most of them are very tolerant of it.
Yeah.
So
Tolerant.
no, it's like me around most people. Well, I don't like it, but I'm tolerant of it.
you gotta coax them into it.
Do they like
Chris sat in his truck like for fucking 15 minutes or like
Oh, it was
way
longer
more
than
than
that.
that.
yeah,
it was like
like a
than
full
that.
half hour
yeah.
Were you here?
before
Yeah.
coming. Yeah, just sitting out there.
Eric was like, "Well, just go in," and I was like, "No, I can't do that."
Yeah,
Could send me a message. We were talking on Instagram.
That's all right.
earlier.
No, it's just anxiety and stuff. I was like, I'll just wait for those guys. I know
yeah,
that.
yeah. You're out there like messaging on Instagram, like, oh yeah, I'll be over in like whatever, like in 15
Like, look
minutes.
out
Or
the
something.
Yeah, I'm
window. It's like,
almost there.
Isn't that him? It's just the
Parked
conspicuous
right in
looking
front of
bald
me.
guy.
Do they like to be in enclosed spaces or do they want to be free?
So the funny,
Some of them sit in their vans when they don't have to, and some.
Yeah. So the very very odd thing about ball pythons, and this is one of the biggest reasons why, and this kind of goes back to how I was talking about. It's sort of notorious in the industry that ball pythons are picky eaters and they go off food for long periods of time. A lot of people do what Nick was saying earlier and humanize their animals, and they think, oh well, this is a snake. Obviously, it wants as big of a space as I can give it. It wants. If I can get it a 200-gallon aquarium, it'll love it. It'll be awesome. Not true about ball pythons. In the wild, they spend 99.9% of their time in termite mounds because they're just timid as all hell. Mm-hmm. They don't like being exposed to light. They don't like being able to be seen. They're kind of dumb and, like I said, timid, but they're very shy creatures. They actually want to be in smaller, secure spots where they don't think they can be preyed upon.
Yeah.
They do better. They eat better. They grow better. They shed better.
It makes them feel secure.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's basically just a comfort. They feel like they are somewhere that they would be if they were in the wild.
Yeah, with that limited intelligence comes the same idea. Like if you put them in too big of an enclosure, they're never going to learn that there's not going to be a threat in that enclosure if it's not a proper size. Mm-hmm. So that's why like the racking system that we keep them in is almost perfect because it replicates almost to a T where they would be in the wild.
Yep.
So it's like a human-made termite
Exactly.
mound.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah.
It gives them everything they need. They have their heat. They have whatever substrate we're using at the time. They have their water, and they're completely secure. Like there's a little bit of light that can get in, but not enough that they're going to feel like they're out in the open. And they don't require like UV light or anything like that. Like you might see your friends have, like other kinds of geckos or chameleons or whatever.
They actually do better with belly. So again,
Just any kind of heat.
yeah, it was something I learned for anybody that has reptiles, right? If it's a like diurnal animal, it's most likely getting its like body heat from the sun. So it would do better with like
If anybody doesn't know, diurnal means awake during the day.
during the day.
Thank you.
No problem.
That was especially for you. So an animal like that is going to get its heat from the sun. So a heat lamp or like a top mounted heating source is better. But for a nocturnal animal like a ball python, it's going to get its heat from the ground, from like heat that is radiating from the ground. So belly heat is much better, which is what we have them on in those racks.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, generally nocturnal animals don't benefit from any kind of light, mostly because there's a reason they're nocturnal.
Yeah.
So
They're built to be in the dark. So
How social are they?
I mean, they don't like hanging out with each other.
no.
We kind of touched on that just about the with the pet question.
Yeah.
But this is harkening back to what we just said about them wanting to be left alone and secure. they don't want to be around other snakes
They
either.
feel
Like,
threatened by
Two
any other
females, yeah.
snakes.
when we breed them, we put them together just for that. Once
Yeah.
they're done, we take them out and they go back to being on their own because otherwise they'll get stressed out and stop eating.
A
So
male-
there's no like
Courting
there's
period?
no pair bonding.
No.
They're just like
No,
this is something we need to do for reasons
Yeah.
we don't
Are there
understand.
sometimes like fucking, but also like wanting to punch each other in the
No,
face?
so
Or?
you never really so a male and a female will tolerate each other for a little bit because there's the like inherent like understanding of needing to procreate, but like a female and a female will not really tolerate each other, and a male will not really tolerate each
Well,
other.
it's funny because a female and a female will stay in the same space and not necessarily fight, but they'll get incredibly stressed out by it.
Yeah.
But if you put a male and a male together, it's instant fighting. It's kind of funny. They just like body check each
Yeah.
other back and forth,
Yeah.
and it's basically just asserting their dominance. And it is one of the many reasons you shouldn't keep them together. But if you have two males, the dominant male can actually essentially rape the less dominant male, and
yeah.
Oh shit.
and do the snake sex on an animal that is not set up to take the
Snake
sex.
prison.
Yeah, it basically is. Yeah.
That's how you make a special note.
So you don't
check that one out later.
so you don't ever want to do
Film
that.
Snake Prison.
Yeah,
Netflix is going to
idea,
buy
yeah.
this as
Yeah,
a
man.
series.
let's do a whole docu-series on animal rape.
Oh yeah, you said about him being out like in a van before he came in here.
Yeah.
Snake Van, and then you're like Snake Van, and then that would be a great stoner metal band name. Snake Van. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Ooh, are there breeds that are illegal in Canada?
Yes.
Kind
of.
Not illegal, but that's only because I'm a very big stickler for the term.
Right.
But there are many different species of reptiles that we can't legally keep in Canada. Most of them are because they're indigenous to certain parts of Canada, and Canada has a very strong opinion on people keeping indigenous animals as pets. And I don't know if everybody knows what indigenous means. They come from Canada.
Or are closely related enough to something that is
Yeah, or very closely related, same species as another animal that is indigenous to Canada. For what reason? I've never really looked into it, but it's
it's my favorite example of this is what species I really like is the Brazilian rainbow boa, and because a few years ago, I'm sure like you guys are musicians too, so like Brazilian rosewood, right, like was super common in guitar making and instrument making. Now you can't get it because Brazil's like, okay, we're not gonna, like, there was the fires and stuff like that, and they're like, okay, we're not gonna ship this out. So Canada likes to be really proactive when it comes to stuff like that. So like, okay, no importation of any natural species from Brazil. That was supposed to expire like 4 or 5 years ago. There's a similar thing for
it
Australia.
was supposed to take 6 months.
Yeah, and it's still in place. And this was like 4 or 5 years ago. And then there's the same thing. Similar thing was in place with Australian species, and it was about to lift right before the fires and everything that happened to that country. Unfortunately, late last year, maybe it was earlier this year. And then obviously that got shut down again. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because it promotes.
I didn't know anything about the Australian one.
Yeah.
So if that's not accurate, I am not going to back him up.
It might be. It's accurate enough. But yeah, it's a frustrating thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool species out there that we'd love to keep, but we can't. And then on top of that, lots of municipalities in Canada have very odd, very sort of nondescript bylaws about what you can and can't keep. Mm-hmm. So it's really difficult because Canada as a whole might allow you to have a 7-foot like Central American boa constrictor, but you could live in let's say Barrie, and they have a bylaw that says you can't have a snake larger than 4 feet. But there's no reason why you can't have a snake longer than 4 feet. They just say you can't. And that's it. Like, and there's no ifs, ands, or
You
buts
can
about
just
it.
imagine the town hall meeting with the concerned moms.
Yeah.
What if it gets into our pipes and it crawls up and eats my kid?
Like they're pulling out a measuring tape. Is okay. Like this is too much. This is okay.
Yeah.
We can deal with this. But
This
not
is our
this.
line. Why?
That's like-
It just is.
With the home growing weed, it's like it has to be shorter than 150 centimeters. It's like, okay, but it can be as wide as you want.
And that's the thing. Yeah, that, like you can get animals like there's a species called blood pythons, and they're thick and like they're thick like pure muscle pythons, and they're generally pretty nasty. Will totally fly under the radar of most municipal bylaws because they only get, say, 4.5, 5 feet. But you can't have an 8-foot boa constrictor that's tame as a puppy dog and real skinny and can fit in a much smaller enclosure than this massive angry blood python. Yeah. And there's no actual distinction as to why. They just say you can't. Yeah. So it's very weird, but it is what it is. We live in Canada and we have to kind of deal with it.
And the same thing goes for a lot of like venomous species too. Not that me and Chris in particular are interested in keeping venomous stuff, but
well, and the other part about that is too, though, venomous is a spectrum. A lot of people hear venomous and they think, oh, it's a rattlesnake, it's going to kill me. There's a lot of species out there that are venomous, but could bite me or you or Eric or Nick, and we wouldn't even know. Like
just because of the chemical compound. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. The Western hognose,
they're very, very, very mildly venomous. But if I get bit, it does nothing.
Where me, on the other hand, if I get bit, I was taking him and his wife were on vacation, and I was going and checking in on his animals, and wasn't super familiar with Western hognose. And when they bite, it's a lot different than a ball python or like another species of like striking snake, where they more gnaw on you. So I opened one of the bins, it popped its head. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? Sort of gnawed on my knuckle. It was enough for them to get like to envenomate me a little bit. And I messaged Chris. I'm like, hey, this is happening. He's like, oh, it should be fine. Like, if it happens to me, like, what? You get, like, nothing. It's a little itchy.
Yeah.
So I finished cleaning their bins, and I'm Ubering home, and I look at my knuckle, and it was swelling up. It was almost like a ping pong ball.
I still don't believe him. He didn't take any pictures.
Is envenomate like the?
That's the correct term.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn. Envenomated. That's a dope death metal band name.
It's like inseminate, but with venom instead of semen.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can have very different reactions to it. So.
But it's generally like the only way you're gonna have a bad reaction is if you're allergic to like bug bites and stuff like that. But even then, it's not like you're gonna like amputate your finger. It's gonna be swollen for a bit. You're gonna have to take a couple Tylenol.
Yeah.
And I mean, you'll probably itch it a bunch that day, and then you'll be fine the next day. It's not like it's going to hurt you in any way.
Would you do it again to prove to Chris that it swole up?
100%.
Yeah? All right.
I would give him money to do that.
How much?
I don't know. I don't have much.
Let's do our usual bet.
I invested all back in snakes.
Yeah, no, and that's really what it is.
Just bragging rights?
Yeah.
All right. Let's.
The funniest part was too, the one that he claims got him was one of our hatchlings from last year, and it was just the most chill, like lazy animals that we have. And this thing just comes out and goes hum.
Yeah.
And it like Nick was saying, they don't bite like you would expect. Like I'm sure everybody's seen a ball python, or not a ball python, but a snake like strike at anything like on a National Geographic show or whatever, where they sort of launch out and grab and then they come back. These guys literally just like slither over and go, like open their mouth and just sort of bite, like, and just hold on. If they bite you, they're not biting you for fun. They're biting you to try and eat you.
Yeah.
Because they're stupid. They definitely can't eat you. There's no possible way they could eat even like the tiniest. But
he's gonna try.
Baby.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, he'll try for a bit. Yeah, they're just that dumb. So Nick literally let this thing bite him. He literally watched it bite him. If this happened the way he says it is, he literally just watched it bite him, and he went, "Oh."
It's not one of my finest moments. That's for sure. Me and Chris, like the like sort of unofficial reptile ward like slogan is, "We're not smart men."
We never said we were smart men.
We never said we were smart. So
you guys are like the ball pythons of like the reptile breeding.
Yeah, man. We stumbled into it. We won't get into the story, but we decided I decided one day that it was like it was December, and like
I have no idea what he's talking about.
When we picked up the racks, and I was in gym shorts, and flip flops, and it was in the middle of December. Bad call.
Yeah. No, there's been some stupid moves. It's just funny though.
Yeah.
Nick almost got hypothermia. It's hilarious. It's a story.
You didn't.
No, I didn't. Hey, you know what?
I got frostbite on one of our band shoots. That was fun.
and now
Erik was wearing a sweater.
Yeah, but like,
it was fine. I'm wearing like a big puffy winter coat and got frostbite on my toes.
That's all right. I got the worst sunburn I've ever had at Eric's barn.
Oh yeah, that.
Oh, still life thing?
Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah.
And I've had some bad sunburns. I am about as white as you can get.
Yeah, I'm Nordic. I'm like impenetrable to cold.
Yeah.
Complete bitch otherwise, but
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, no one would like suspect that because you think of Nordic, right? Like,
Yeah.
like tall, generally good looking, and then you see like
this fucking train wreck.
human stain.
Hey,
That's amazing.
I will not have this belittling of Eric on the
you
show.
can't have Nick here. If people are being nice to
I don't
Eric.
think you can be like friends for as long as me and Eric have to not like reach this.
He even
point.
says me and Eric. What a dick,
Eric and I, like you're
Fucking
some sort of classy,
envenomate over here.
yeah, some sort of classy, like well-spoken. You live in Brantford.
Well, you've got him there though. He's got you there.
Yeah. Shit rolls downhill.
Yeah.
Right, Brandon Clark 808 is asking, you've covered this already, do they really get along with rodents? I saw the one story where they made it seem pretty convincing that they liked each other. It was a mouse, not a rat, so I could see
they don't like each other.
it's just fear if they don't
the
eat
reason.
them.
Yeah, the reason that the snake's not eating the mouse or the rat is stress usually, and then the animal just sort of coexisting beside it for that long is just compounding the stress. So it's just making the animal not want to eat more and more. And that the problem with snakes is, again, like Nick mentioned earlier, a lot of people humanize them.
Yeah.
They think, oh, well, if it's not eating it, that means it's got to like it. That's not true.
The
It's just
story I heard, I
chilling.
think it ate other things though. After, so it's like they put the mouse in his cage, and then he didn't eat for like a long time, and they got concerned, and then they gave him other food, and he ate that, but he wouldn't eat this mouse.
It could just be that they were offering him something that's a little more appetizing, then, because, like Nick mentioned earlier,
They
I'm
can
gonna keep
not
saying
eat
that a lot.
for a very long time.
Oh, but not only that, but the African softers, the rodents that actually come from where they come from, are basically like crack to them. If you have an animal that won't eat and you offer them one of those, generally it's going to take it.
Yeah.
The problem is they can get hooked on them, and they're not as readily available as mice or rats, so it's a bit of an issue. But if you get in a position where you're like, oh, I am concerned,
They're also like bigger assholes than usual rats. Like they bite harder and
Yeah.
more danger for the snake.
yep.
So that cute story is just a snake being extremely uncomfortable
Yeah.
with his new roommate.
Yeah.
And the owners were too ignorant to
Yeah.
fix the problem.
Yeah, and then the rat was in there like
Also uncomfortable.
Yeah, aware that there's a super predator beside it and could kill it at any moment.
Oh, those poor little dudes.
Yeah.
And then lastly, S Tattoos official says, "Nice pictures, winky face." That was the question.
Thank you.
Do you
Thank
have?
you.
Yeah.
I'd say the pictures are like 90% me and 10% Nick, because I always ask Nick to get pictures and he always forgets.
I'm not good at it.
It's not that you're not good at it. You take good pictures.
Yeah.
You just always forget to take them when I ask you to. And so I have to take a bunch when I come to your place.
Nick's got busted ass hands too, though,
This is
so
true.
it's got to be hard to take a fucking.
is, man.
All right. So yeah, I thought that was like a bot, but you're saying that he's S Tattoos official saw your picture.
I mean, I would hope
wink.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. It might be a bot.
so. I mean, if it was a bot, then thank you anyway. Yeah, I'll still take it as a compliment.
Yeah.
So
Do you remember the story when you like dreamed that you had no hands or that your hands? didn't
No,
work
so
or
what?
whatever?
Okay, you and Adam always butcher this. So what happens is, I'm not exactly sure of the specifics of it, which is it's stupid because it's a disability that affects me. But the nerve endings and the tendons didn't develop properly in my hands. So when I was younger, I was always really afraid of like it progressively getting worse. So there was one night I slept weird on my arm and I woke up and it was super asleep and I couldn't move my hand. So I had a panic attack and thought, oh, fuck, I've lost the ability to use my hand. So thinking that I'm just like sharing like this semi-traumatic experience with my two best friends in high school, they turned around to turn this into like something they dunked on me with for like the next 4 years and still comes up.
Well, still.
Yeah. They'll, a good friend of all three of us, actually, this guy named Adam, it was when we were still back in high school. It was a couple weeks after I shared this with him, and we were in the middle of class, and he was a couple rows over from me, and I look over at him, and he starts, like, I don't know why, like, they would always, like, make up this weird, like, crippled hand sort of thing and do it at me, but Adam did it wrong and was just sort of like
yeah, we were doing like the Scary Movie 2 guy's hand thing at him.
Strong hand,
and Adam was just like pretty
like
much
a raptor claw.
Yeah, like if you were like stroking something with a finger is pretty much what he was doing.
It's like an ET thing.
Yeah. So if you're wondering why I'm such a piece of shit to Eric, it's why it's
like that's one of the
10 years
paramount reasons. But like like the funny thing about that is like Adam did it wrong, so it also became like a thing to make fun of Adam about. So like it's like a bit with like it's like a fun onion with like a bunch of layers on it.
Clearly, we're a very like good, supportive group of friends.
Yeah. But then, like I always pictured like Nick waking up like in the middle of the night with like the guy from Scary Movie 2's weird hand, but like ×2, and going like no, like super messed up.
Yeah, that's
one of those geckos. I just happened to pop up on my feed. I'm sure this is great to listen to.
Yeah.
One of the I'll can you send that to me and I'll
sure
that's
can.
That's a Legionnaires gecko. So that's the ones that we were talking about that gets pretty big, and I drastically overestimated the size they get to. But yeah,
that's chunky gecko.
Yeah,
he thick.
Sure is.
That's not any of the types you have.
No, Nick has one.
I have one that's growing up, but yeah, I haven't done like she's not even a year old yet. So
how big is yours?
She's about this big right now.
Okay.
From like tip of snout to tip of tail. So
how long?
People listening, that's about 8 inches.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Yeah,
and yeah, she's probably around I want to say maybe 200 grams right now. No, she's quite a bit smaller because they usually max out around 3. So yeah,
so I'd say yours is probably around like 100, 110.
160, yeah.
Okay, so that one you showed me was probably like really, really big.
That's a near full grown, but they can get bigger than that. That's not the biggest they can get. But that is still a rather large gecko.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the biggest one is probably still got a few inches on that one. So that's what she said.
How do you feel about turtles?
I like turtles.
Let's do some rapid fire over under.
Yeah.
Overrated or underrated? Just turtles.
Personally, not a big fan. Just because of like the smell and the fact that like you can get seriously sick.
A salmonella.
Handling them, yeah.
Yeah,
I like them. I had a snapping turtle that I found out after the fact, illegally owned for many years because I just took it from a lake. Like I found it crossing the street, and I was like, "This is mine. I'm taking it home."
Another similar story to that is when I was a kid, I used to go to Florida a lot with my parents, and there's like house geckos are really common there, and I used to like catch them and like legally import them back
accidentally, basically,
without knowing. So. Both of us have.
So we got one thumbs up, one thumbs down for turtles.
Yep.
How about bearded dragons?
Nope.
No,
not a fan.
They're
just boring.
Too mainstream.
Yeah. And well, they're also we were talking about it earlier about some species that don't do well in captivity, and that's one of them. Or they don't do great.
See, I think they just a lot of them are like it's hard to put this into words properly. They're kind of over taken care of. They're overfed and all that kind of stuff. Because if you see a bearded dragon, and Nick is right, we were talking about this not long ago. If you see a bearded dragon in the wild, they're generally a lot more muscly, lean. They just overall look better, but you see them in captivity, and they're generally really fat. And
right, so they're used to getting some exercise.
Yeah, exactly. Skinny little legs, and
they're not chasing like they're being fed like crickets and stuff like that, and mealworms. So they're not having to actively hunt for their prey.
Yeah, so I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
I don't want to delve too deep onto that one, but I just
not for us.
Yeah,
Komodo dragons.
Awesome.
Yeah, if we could figure out a way to do it, probably.
I mean, I never talked about having one, but I definitely would want one.
There was
they don't have venom. They have like bacteria, right?
Venomous.
They just have,
it's still considered venomous because of how it enters your body. But yeah, it's super bacteria filled saliva,
and it doesn't. Cool. Well, they can survive. They're kind of omnivores, which is like not super common with reptiles. But if people have kind of found that if you keep them in captivity and you don't really feed them meat, they don't develop that same sort of bacteria.
Oh shit!
It's kind of interesting.
They get that vegan gut biome.
Yeah.
Keep pushing the vegetarian, Nick.
Yeah,
come on.
If you guys,
I know I'm not alone. It's 50-50. They're in split right now.
If you guys somehow like got a Komodo dragon, that'd be like way more of a scandal than if like one of your snakes got out. You know,
I don't want to out him, but there's
terrorizing the neighborhood.
There's a dude closer to Toronto that has one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
If you look hard enough, there's people everywhere that have everything. So what we have does not seem that crazy if you actually go to a deep
So they're
dive.
allowed, like.
No. That's why I don't want to mention who it is.
Okay, fair.
Because if like not CITES, but like
like a Canadian Fish and Wildlife.
yeah, they could really crack down on it. Like there's dudes. So one of the largest species of snake in the world is the green anaconda. And there's like, how old is he? Maybe like 14.
I don't want to get too specific on this.
I just watched Anaconda the other night. Terrible movie.
Inexperienced.
There's a person that has an illegally owned anaconda that is constantly posting it online and not being smart about it, because generally people that have pets that they're not supposed to have are smart enough to not tell the entire world that they have them.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I don't want to delve too deep into that kind of stuff, Nick, because I don't want to.
But you don't feel too
I'm
bad
cool
either
with
because he's
people
on Instagram with it.
Yeah,
we won't name him by name, but yeah, he's very young, and I don't think he's fully prepared for what he's got in his hands. A snake that can reach what?
I don't have anacondas.
Big.
A snake that can reach big.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to give out any more inaccurate information, so we'll just leave it
lots.
at big.
It can get lots.
Godzilla.
Yep.
Yeah. Big fan.
Yeah. All right.
I'm gonna make some people hate me right now, but I loved the 1999 American Godzilla. I do love original Godzilla, but when I was in,
that was the one with P. Diddy's "Come With Me."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When I was in, I think I was in 4th grade. I went to
Brain
see it.
Stew on that soundtrack.
Yep,
too?
it sure is.
Fuck yeah, man. That's
Yeah,
all
that whole soundtrack is amazing. Rage is on it. It's so good.
Yeah.
But no, like I went to see that movie for like my. I think I don't know how old I would be in 4th grade, but I went to see that for my birthday, and literally all I got for my birthday was like toys from the movie, and I was just in my glory. It was the best.
Yeah.
Maximum verified length of an anaconda is 30 feet.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's fucked up,
Man,
dude.
yeah, and they get big too. Like that 30-foot snake.
I think African rock pythons actually get a little bit bigger. I think they can get to 35.
But the green anacondas are girthier. Like
they're big. Thick. Yep.
Obviously, not something that you should.
These are not rapid fire questions.
No.
We keep talking.
That's okay. Alligators.
Yeah. Again,
I think alligators.
Crocodiles
cool.
versus alligators.
Alligators.
Like
I don't have a reason for that answer. I just
I kind of do, because as I mentioned before, when I was younger, I spent a lot of time in like Florida, Georgia.
They're the ones with the spikes.
the wider heads, and like actually seeing them in the wild is pretty impressive. Like knowing that there's something like 6 feet from you that if you fucked up could just end your life is pretty cool in a morbid way.
Frogs.
I like
Am I being
frogs.
too broad?
No, I like frogs.
No, yeah.
Frogs get a thumbs up in general.
Yeah,
Dart
no,
frogs,
the wife wants us to get some poison dart frogs.
Yeah.
If you don't know what they look like, look them up. They're tiny and adorable. They're
Super
all bright
colorful.
colored, and like they're like black and bright colored. And they generally just eat small insects, and they're not actually poisonous.
No. It comes from like the things that they're eating
In the wild,
so
and captivity, you just feed them crickets, and they don't get that
so you get
poison.
this incredibly colored animal that like is perfectly harmless and actually does pretty well in captivity if you provide it with the proper enclosure.
And I also want a red-eyed tree frog, which is the frog that you always see in the TELUS commercials.
Yeah. It's kind of adjacent, but like cane toad. Cane toad is something I'm very, very interested in.
They're huge.
Is that the giant one you always see the guy holding up and it's like the size of his torso?
I think so.
Yes.
They're the
Yes.
big wide ones,
Like in the Amazon?
Yeah.
They, like
They're
fish them out of the
huge,
river.
they're huge.
They look like our toads, but
But
they're just
big.
massive. Yeah.
You remember Battletoads or
100%.
Battletoads with Double Dragon?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I remember Battletoads.
Yeah. I think because we were children, like Chris is a little bit older than me, but like children of the early 90s, like Jurassic Park and Battletoads.
Street sharks.
I didn't realize how
dude,
how
street
reptile
sharks.
oriented.
Yeah,
sharks.
Yes, Street
Turtles.
Sharks was sick. Yeah, Battletoads. I'm glad you guys, because that game was, and it
love
was like
it.
multiplayer.
Yeah.
And it's
in a time where
super
you didn't have
expensive
really a
if
lot
you
of-
want to buy it now. If you go looking online, it is not
Yeah,
cheap.
it's kind of a meme, eh?
yeah,
I
it's,
have it.
oh man,
Not
I am
here,
so jealous.
but
Have you played it like as an adult?
probably like in my early 20s.
It doesn't
yeah,
hold up. Very, very difficult. And like,
It doesn't. It didn't hold up.
no, not to me.
I felt.
Don't talk, Nick.
I felt like it did. Maybe the nostalgia was
Don't
just
shit talk
firing
Battletoads.
full. Oh wait.
This entire episode was fine.
Because I'm talking about specifically Battletoads Double Dragon, which is like
okay,
because Battletoads was like earlier, so I think they kind of worked out some of the bugs because I remember going back to just Battletoads and it was it didn't because did they also have it where they dropped items and you could take any item that the bad guys dropped because that's what really made that game pop.
I can't remember.
They did change the game when they did the double release. But what about Earthworm Jim?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, that was a great game.
I have an Earthworm Jim tattoo on my leg.
Nice.
I'm not ashamed to tell people.
He could use his own. I mean, it's his body. Like, so his body is just like a prosthetic. And then his actual body he uses as a whip.
And if we want to talk about things that do hold up now, the Earthworm Jim cartoon, amazing.
Oh, I
have it on a hard drive.
Yeah.
Love it.
I gotta see that.
Oh, you
how
will
many
get you
episodes of that?
I think there's like 15.
Yeah.
There was a few. There was like one good.
I remember
season.
loving that, but it's I haven't even.
And the game
Earthworm
on
Jim has not crossed my mind.
And the game on Sega.
Yeah.
Oh man, so good. I think it was Sega. Yeah, it was Sega.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was actually like a really good platform game.
Yeah,
Like,
no, for sure.
Awesome level design and stuff.
You could use his head as a whip and like swing from it and stuff.
Yeah.
God, I love that game.
Rapid fire.
Worms.
Worms?
Yeah, worms. Other than Jim.
No.
Nope.
No.
I'm gonna say that I'm not a fan.
Worms, but excluding Jim. Fucking no.
You lost me. Yeah. I'm out.
Birds.
No.
No?
I don't. So it might be this weird phobia, but the fact that they're like at eye level and they have like razors attached to them and can just fuck up your ability to see, it's just no thank you.
This reminded me of the other day. There's a possum that sometimes sleeps by our bedroom window, and so we had the window open because it was like a nice cool night. We were letting the breeze in, and Boomy, our cat, was sitting on the window, and she was like looking around because she hears the possum over there, and I come up with a flashlight. And she's got a fucked up eye, so I don't think she sees out of it.
Yeah.
So like I just get like right up there with the flashlight, and she didn't see me walk up, and then she turns around and like I'm just there, and then we're like 2 inches, our faces are 2 inches apart. She's just like, and I thought I was gonna die.
Yeah,
I didn't, but
that's funny.
Yeah, being face to face with a sharp creature like that.
I'm gonna go for no for birds just because they're not that interesting to me. I mean,
not even the close evolutionary relation with. No, it doesn't.
I mean, there's some cool birds, but as a whole, they're just kind of annoying and loud.
Most overrated dinosaur.
Oh man. This is. It's got to be the T-Rex.
Yeah, I would say Velociraptor too because it's been so like.
But Velociraptors are actually awesome.
Yeah, Velociraptors are dope.
They are, but like okay, but what version of it? The actual one or the Jurassic Park version? Because the Jurassic Park version is not the actual.
Yeah,
version.
true. That's
it's like a chicken with like.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. The feathers make it cooler.
But it's like a chicken.
I just said I didn't want to like birds.
Murder chicken.
Yeah. But
fuck birds, buddy.
Yeah, fuck birds. But you know what?
You're like because
feathers.
You're like because of the close relation, and he's like no, and then he's like wait. Yeah.
So what Chris is trying to say, if you could create a feathered reptile, it'd be his favorite thing in the world.
But no, I only say the T-Rex because a lot of people assume it's this big badass thing that Jurassic Park made it out to be, and really it was just a giant scavenger that couldn't do anything on its own. Like that's
it's quite helpless, right?
Yeah, it would just walk around and eat the stuff that other things killed.
Yeah, true.
Are you both going with T-Rex?
No, it's Velociraptor.
You're holding on to Velociraptor.
He's gonna stay wrong.
He's gonna stay wrong.
I think this is why me and Chris make such a good business partnership is because we really agree on very few things. The debate we had when we were trying to
like stonewall about your fucking opinion. Yeah.
Neither of us is gonna cave. The debate we had when we were trying to figure out what color we were gonna get our first T-shirts printed in was pretty good.
Yeah,
because I think I started in black and Chris started at bright purple. So I don't think you could get too much farther on the.
It was purple.
So you wanted purple or green?
Yeah, no, it was purple because I realized that I was subconsciously trying to copy another shirt that I had seen. And I was like, yeah, it was probably a good idea we didn't do that.
Yeah.
That's okay.
All right. Do you have any?
What?
Do you have any over under or just blatant biased opinion questions?
That we've never thought of before now, but we have to make up an opinion
That's
on
good.
the
You put us on
spot.
the spot.
Well, you were talking about possums. What about possums over under?
I love possums.
Yeah. Speaking of like
I think
another
they're cool.
anecdote, I have
good.
in the one corner of my backyard behind my shed, there's a possum that lives, and then the other corner of my yard, like kind of beside the house, like I live in a back split, so the two houses are connected. There's a skunk. So,
Under.
Yeah. So sometimes when I'll go out back to have a smoke or something like that, the skunk will pop out and I've got to like quickly run back inside. But a few days ago, a buddy was over at my place and he got a phone call. So he's out back, like taking the call. And a few minutes in, I hear him slam the door and all I can smell is skunk. So I guess what had happened is the possum had come from one side and the skunk had come from the other, and they met in the middle and just got into it.
Straight up Pokemon duel.
Yeah. So I
The
haven't
skunk
seen,
you stink. It's
Yeah.
highly effective.
I haven't seen the possum since, but I think me and the skunk have come to
Opossum
understanding.
skunko.
I think me and
Fucking
the skunk have kind of come to understanding now because like he realizes I'm a peaceful pothead, so he just kind of looks at me and continues on.
He's like,
Just
that's
like,
a good,
teeth.
he's like, that's a good smell, bro.
Yeah, man,
I
it
like
smells
that
like me.
shit.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why he's coming out. He thinks it's like a female skunk or something. He's just trying to, you know.
He's trying to fuck up on you.
Yeah, man.
Fuck up on you. Pepe Le Pew. Except instead of a stripe of
Yeah.
paint, it's the ganja.
Yeah, man. I got to be careful.
All right. Where are we at?
Hour 53.
You let
Hour
Nick
53,
talk a
that's-
lot.
Yeah, I feel like I dominated a lot, but
Should I not have let
No.
him talk a lot?
Not usually.
All right, you.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Now, Nick, I kind of have. He has this thing now where like I call him like an encyclopedia of bullshit.
It's
like
true.
like he's able to
he
like
said that when he was pitching this idea.
yeah. He's able to just like. Well, like, because you're saying, like, all of the shit that you know from reptiles, you learned from
Yeah.
him.
Well,
but
not-
you probably only heard him say it, like, once or twice, and
Yeah.
you're just like...
But
stores it
then
in.
then he takes that and then he just like goes
Extrapolates
down.
it?
Yeah, then he just like goes down a hole
Yeah.
and finds out all this other crap.
very often, like we go to when we're driving to Oakville to help out at Billy's, I'll be like, yeah, so I was up until 3 a.m. last night looking into this one very specific gene. It was like, why? And I was like, I don't
Like,
know, man.
I won't even bother doing that much research over the next 2 years. Like,
So.
why would you do that? And he's like, oh, okay. Huh, that is what it is.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm a human encyclopedia for bullshit.
You want to get your, like, plugs in for socials and stuff?
I guess the main one is the Reptile Award on Instagram, Facebook. I think that's everything.
Just
we have
all
right now.
one word, no numbers, right?
Nope, just the just
Yeah, so all one word on Instagram,
Yeah.
but on Facebook that's spaced properly. So it's just the Reptile Ward.
if you're curious, we don't really have too much on there right now, but if you wanted to kind of take a look at animals we have available, there's a website called Morph Market, and it's Reptile Word on there as well.
Sorry, what is it?
It's called Morph Market.
Okay.
Morph Market. My personal Instagram is kind of bullshit, so I won't bother plugging that. But I don't know if Chris wants to.
No, I don't want people looking at my face. Just come look at our cool snakes.
Yeah.
They're very pretty.
Yeah.
And
Or don't.
look at our snakes.
Yeah. Come check them out. Take a gander.
That's going to be the title of this
Yeah,
one.
come look at our snakes.
Look at our snakes.
Perfect.
And that podcast you do for the people who are like, I did not hear enough about snakes today.
I mean, if they want to come check it out, they can. The thing is, like Nick said earlier, it's a very...
They might spend an hour and a half talking about the.
it's a very
investing.
it's a very inside kind of podcast. So there will be a lot of terminology thrown around that you may not be familiar with. It'd be like getting into any.
I'm trying to reverse psychology on them, huh?
No, this is too much for you. You're not going to understand it.
Yeah.
You would-
You
You're
wouldn't get it.
this is
Bitch
big brain time.
Yeah.
If you
No,
your pleb brain will not understand
has-
the
it
snake
has-
terminology.
It has nothing to do with that. It's just basically terms that they've made up that they could use proper terms, but the hobby is taken on others, and that people just wouldn't know because of how they're used. But if they do want to go check it out, the channel is Mutation Creation Canada, and every Monday at 7 p.m. we go live, and it's the podcast itself is called My Channel, My Content, and it's kind of a play on the rest of his YouTube channel, because his whole thing is him kind of just not giving a F about
Billy
what people think.
kind of marches to the sound of his own drum in the ball python community.
Yeah, so it is fun. If anybody does actually want to get a little deeper into it, they're more than welcome.
Somebody that's been listening to this and like is interested in diving into it a little bit more, it's definitely a good place to go to start learning. I guess the only other thing,
what are some other resources where people can figure out how to see if they want a snake, how they would,
I would
what
say
they
to
need
avoid, and this tends to be a lot of people's like, I need to learn about something. This is the first place I go.
Guys.
Don't go to the ball python subreddit. There's a lot of misinformation on there.
The anti-plug.
It's not great. Also, there's a website called World of Ball Pythons that a lot of people push people towards, but it's become kind of a shithole. So don't use that. But there's lots of really cool Facebook groups you can go on.
YouTube is a great resource.
Lots of great YouTube content creators that are in the ball python community. If you search up my boss, Billy, or our boss, Billy, the Mutation Creation Canada, like I mentioned, all the like similar pages will be a lot of very good info.
Well, if you follow the Reptile Ward on Instagram, their live streams are very interesting.
Oh yeah, I guess we do those too.
They're very interesting and interactive.
Yeah, man, they're pretty ramshackle. We usually just decide to do it either like the day before or like an hour or two before.
Yeah,
or sometimes literally in the moment when I'm way too drunk to actually manage to comprehend.
And
words,
I guess,
but that happens.
Guess plugging some other friends if you're looking for really like maybe not quite educational stuff, but there's a guy named Brian Cusco.
What are you talking about? Brian puts out crazy educational
I'm
stuff
thinking
too.
about his like travel blogs and stuff.
Oh yeah. No, but he also has lots of educational stuff. So,
but again, then good research there, and another.
Stop trying to curb Brian, bro.
So we didn't really get to it. It's Brian Cusco, Kusko on YouTube. And also on Instagram, and then he also runs his business, which is Triple B TV, where he does a lot of very in-depth interviews with other really prevalent members of the like reptile hobby as a whole. Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Do you have an axolotl?
What's that?
Do you have an axolotl?
We sure do.
Nice.
That's the wife's. He's just our pet. His name is Beef Squatch. If you've ever seen Bob's Burgers, yeah.
Beef Squatch.
Yeah, so he's pretty awesome.
They also have a what is it?
Blue tongue skink.
Blue tongue skink named Katya after the.
No, the blue tongue skink is named Trixie. She just named the new hatchling Katya.
The podcast is better when you talk at the same time.
Thank you.
Do you like?
I'm glad that you finally decided to be a producer in the last like closing minutes of the podcast. Like you didn't say anything about me coughing or like us turning away from the mics, but you know when you find an opportunity to dunk on me, you took it, and I respect that.
Stop coughing, bitch.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that you think we should plug as a resource if anybody looks
resources? If you're looking for an affordable like way to house animals and like a much along the same lines as our ARS racking system, it's what are they called?
Serpent Stacks.
They're run by a couple friends of ours. Really quality products. Good people to deal with too. And you know what? It's a great first step from going from maybe having your ball python in like a fish tank or like a bin or something like that to an actual racking system where you can house more than one animal.
And something a little more stable for the animal versus a glass tank. Yep. And then one last one I'll go over. We've already mentioned it, but if you want to just sort of take a look at what's out there and see how absolutely extensive the ball python hobby is and why we're so into it the way we are, just go on Morph Market, click on ball pythons, and just browse through the thousands of pages that they have. There's some incredible stuff on there, and if you have any interest in getting a snake, you're almost guaranteed to find something you like.
And people are finding new genes all the time, so it's always exciting.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for coming in, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
How many shirts did we order last time?
Too many? 50?
50, that's what it was.
This is a recurring theme.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, we were talking about merch though.
We were talking about merch yesterday or last time. Yester time.
Yesterday.
Yester occurrence.
Yester time.
Yester time.
I like that.